I'm Isabel, and that night the people I once called family pointed at me like I was the disaster they'd been forced to endure their whole lives. The living room glowed with soft yellow light from an old ceiling fixture, but it wasn't warm enough to thaw the chill in Avery's voice. My younger sister. She sat cross-legged on the carpet, clutching her MacBook, having just ended a live stream celebrating 100,000 followers. Her expression twisted as the screen began to lag. The ring light flickered. And then she acted like it was somehow my fault for breathing. "Why do you always show up the moment something good happens?" Avery snapped, turning her head toward me like she'd seen a ghost. "You drain every bit of energy in this house. You always do." I stood in the walkway between the kitchen and the living room, holding a cup of cold tea. I didn't answer. I hadn't even said a word before my mother rose from the couch, brushing her pants off like she was wiping away filth. "He's right," she said, her eyes steady and unflinching. "Every time your sister gets close to something great, you ruin it. You've drained this family." My father, Raymond, just pinched the bridge of his nose, saying nothing. Like it was all just another act in a play he'd seen too many times. No one asked why Avery blamed me for a technical glitch. No one questioned the absurd logic. No one said, "Isabel, your sister went too far." I was not named. Not my daughter, not Avery's sister, just a shadow in their way. Something expendable. I turned around and retreated to the spare room by the garage. The space they let me crash in after I lost my job and left New York. The carpet smelled musty, the door creaked every time it closed. I sat on the bed, listening to the music, still playing from the living room, like I didn't exist in this house at all. I opened a drawer, pulled out my old, worn backpack, the one I'd used all through college. I stuffed in a few sets of clothes, my personal meds, phone charger, wallet, and a notebook. No photos, no letters, nothing with memories. I didn't want to bring anything that might remind me I once believed they loved me. 18 minutes later, I walked out the back door without a sound, like I was sneaking away from my own bloodline. No one called after me. No one asked, "Where are you going?" No voice reached for me. I walked 2 blocks to the gas station at the end of the street, where flickering fluorescent lights cast shadows on cracked concrete, like the final glow of a closing world. I bought a granola bar and a bottle of water. Not out of hunger, not out of thirst, just to keep my hands from shaking. "Is the last bus still running?" I asked the cashier. "If the driver's not stuck in traffic, maybe in 5 minutes," he replied, barely glancing at me. I sat on the cold metal bench outside, my back against a faded advertisement, eyes staring at the dark stretch of road ahead. My backpack rested between my feet, like the only life raft I had left. When the bus finally arrived, I climbed on without looking back. I didn't glance at the house, didn't hope someone would follow. I had no room left for hope, only space, and silence that pressed against my chest. On the bus, streetlights slid across the window like streaks of blurred paint. I leaned my head against the seat, forcing my eyes to stay open, trying not to replay what had just been said. But the words echoed anyway. "You ruin everything. We're exhausted because of you. You're a burden." No one slapped me, but every word stung worse than a slap ever could. I didn't cry, I didn't call anyone. I thought of only one thing. I had been erased from my own life, and they didn't need me, until there was no one else left to blame. I arrived in Chicago just before midnight. The early spring wind stung my face, but it still felt gentler than the air I'd left behind. Slinging my backpack over my shoulder, I stepped off the bus and quietly melted into the hurried crowd inside Union Station. No one noticed me, and that was a comfort. At this point, invisibility was the only form of protection I had left. I turned onto 14th Street, where a flickering sign hung crooked above a dusty glass door. "Lincoln Budget Inn, weekly rates available." The manager, a dark-skinned, balding man in his 50s, glanced at me from head to toe and asked in a flat voice, "Cash or card?" "I have $230, I answered, not sugarcoating anything. He nodded, handed me a key with a room number scrawled in fading marker, P203. 3 nights, clean towels included, no refunds. The room smelled like mold mixed with overused disinfectant, wallpaper peeled from the walls pretending to be wood paneling. A ceiling fan creaked in rhythm, as if reminding me I was still breathing. I took off my shoes and collapsed onto the rock-hard bed. It was nearly 2 a.m. I stared at the ceiling, trying not to think about where I was or why I was there. The next morning, I washed my face with cold water, the hot water tank was broken, and dragged a wooden chair closer to the only wall outlet near the window. I turned on my phone, connected to the motel's spotty Wi-Fi, and logged into an old tutoring platform I'd used back in college, LearnTrack. My profile was still there. Blurry photo, outdated bio, Isabel W., University of Illinois, education major, SAT/ACT essay and reading prep. I updated everything, new photo, fresh description, and a short, honest introduction. I can't promise your score will change overnight, but I'll help you understand, stay with you, and make sure you never feel like you're learning alone. I hit submit, then waited. By afternoon, a message popped up from a user named Mrs. Carter, Dylan's mom. My son's taking the SAT next month. He needs help with reading comprehension. Could you start tomorrow? I hit accept like it was a lifeline. The first session took place at the community library 4 blocks from the motel. I checked out a Chromebook for 2 hours. Dylan, a 16-year-old with sandy blonde hair and a soft voice, was shy at first. But when I explained the passage using a scene from Stranger Things, he laughed. And for the first time since leaving home, I felt someone was actually listening to me. You made this Shakespeare part make sense, Dylan said, eyes wide. You should be teaching at my school. I laughed. I used to think I would, but life had other plans. After the session, his mom sent $35 via PayPal for the 90-minute lesson. I almost didn't dare look at the payment alert, not because it was a large amount, but because it was the first money I had earned using my own skills after months of feeling crushed. That night, back at the motel, I grabbed a pen and scribbled on the back of my room receipt. Plus 35, sat tutoring, Dylan, Wednesday confirmed. I folded the paper twice, tucked it into my coat pocket, like a child tucking away a birthday bill. Not for its value, but for what it meant. Hope. 3 days later, I took on 2 more students. An 11th grade girl preparing for the ACT, and a 32-year-old man named Marcus studying for the GED. He had dropped out of school to take care of his sick mother. Now he wanted a second chance. I can't even remember how square roots work, he said with a sheepish grin. I pointed at the whiteboard. That's fine. By tomorrow, we'll turn it into something as easy as a cookie. He laughed out loud. So did I. By the weekend, I was wrapped in a blanket in my motel room, staring out the window as the first snowflakes of the season danced in the wind. For the first time in years, I felt useful. Not because I was doing something grand, but because someone genuinely needed me. Not to protect a family image, not to serve as someone else's backdrop, but because I was actually helping them. I opened my phone and skimmed through new messages. One stood out. Dylan had texted. I got 7 out of 10 right on the reading section. That's my best ever. I smiled. No one in my family knew where I was. No one had asked. But that night, in a shabby room filled with the scent of damp towels and the fume of an old ceiling fan, I felt safer than I ever had in that house, with doors that always closed the moment I needed them to open. Friday night, after my final online tutoring session of the day, I sat alone in the corner of my room, holding a mug of hot cocoa back against the wall, laptop on my lap. A light breeze slipped through the torn curtain, carrying a chill that barely registered. I picked up my phone, like I always did before bed, just to scroll through some news. Then a Facebook notification hit my screen. Avery Thompson updated her cover photo. I didn't understand why I was still on her friends list. Maybe a small part of me still hoped she'd change, or maybe I had just forgotten to remove her. I opened the post. The new cover photo was a holiday-style family portrait, bright, polished, and picture-perfect, like something out of a seasonal magazine. My mom wore a deep burgundy sweater. My dad looked neat in a plaid button-down. Avery sat between them, smiling wide, arms wrapped around their shoulders. Even the family's little dog, Pepper, was tucked perfectly in her lap. I stared at the photo for almost a full minute before it hit me. I wasn't in it. Not just absent. The old Christmas photo from last year, where I sat on the far edge holding a plate of cookies, forcing a smile, had been replaced. I scrolled down through her older posts, past albums I remembered once existed. Some of the pictures I recalled clearly were now gone. Posts that used to mention both my daughters now only read, "Avery and Pepper are the greatest gifts of my life." A chill ran down my spine. I typed my name into the search bar on my mother's page. Nothing. No posts, no photos, not even last year's birthday message. Every trace of me had been wiped away, quietly, cleanly, as if I'd never existed. I laughed, a dry, hollow sound, the kind of laugh that holds no joy. The next morning, I went to the library, as usual, to tutor Marcus online. But after this session, instead of heading back to the motel, I walked into a nearby print shop. I printed out Avery's cover photo, the one that had kept me up all night, and folded it neatly, sliding it into my notebook. Not to keep as a memory, but to never forget the truth. Back at the room, I pulled out an old shipping box I had once used to send my mom her birthday gift the year before. I remembered it vividly, a box of premium Earl Grey tea, paired with silk handkerchiefs I had custom embroidered with Judith tea, in gold thread. I'd saved for nearly 2 weeks to afford it. Inside was a handwritten card. "If there's still a place in your heart for me, I'd like to come back. All it takes is a call, a hug. I miss you." I had sent it on April 3rd. Her birthday was April 7th. I never heard back. I used to think maybe she was busy or never received it. Now I knew she never opened it. Or worse, she opened it, read it, and threw it away. That night, I didn't work, didn't teach, didn't reply to any messages. I just sat in that musty room, opened my laptop, and scrolled through Avery's Instagram, the platform I had avoided like a disease. Every post felt like a cut. Family is where the peace is. Grateful for always having parents by my side. Today's for the best woman in the world, my mom. Not one mention of me, not one photo. No indication I had ever been Judith and Raymond's daughter. In a short story, I saw a shot of the hallway wall at home, the one that used to display my college graduation photo, now replaced. Avery stood there, wearing an honors gown, between our parents, holding her master's degree. No one remembered that I had once stood there too, in that same spot, with a smile just as bright. I sat frozen. I hadn't been forgotten. I'd been erased intentionally. I closed the laptop but couldn't sleep. In my head, Avery's voice from years ago echoed. When I was 13 and left out of a family picnic, "She makes people uncomfortable. Don't let her come." Back then, my mom had just patted my shoulder and whispered, "Your sister's just sensitive." Turns out, I wasn't too sensitive. They just had a habit of removing anything that didn't fit, no matter if it was their own daughter. I stood up, rummaged through the shipping box, and pulled out the birthday card I had written, still had a draft left. I reread every line, and for the first time, found it almost funny. Funny how I once believed a hug would be enough. This time, I didn't write a message. I tore a small piece of paper and wrote 3 simple words. "I'm still here." I taped it to the bathroom mirror, right where I'd see it every morning, staring into my own eyes, so I'd never forget it again. 1 week after realizing I'd been erased from my family, I received a strange Facebook message from a familiar name, Madeline Pierce, my best friend from college, the one who'd pulled all-nighters with me as we built our first curriculum outline. After graduation, she went on to become a project manager at an edtech firm in Denver. I, on the other hand, had drifted through years of uncertainty after a few career misfires. Isabel, I came across something, and I think you need to see it. Can we talk? I messaged her my number. Less than a minute later, my phone rang. Her voice was still as brisk and sharp as I remembered. Do you remember the SAT materials we worked on senior year? The ones you turned into your own course when you moved back to North Carolina? I nodded, even though she couldn't see. I still have the drafts in my drive. Her voice dropped, nearly a whisper. I think your sister stole them. I froze. Avery? Yeah. Last week, our company got a partnership pitch from a new online learning platform called Pathbright Academy. The founder, Avery Thompson. She's promoting an SAT course with a tagline about understanding students better than they understand themselves. Sounds catchy, but when I clicked, Isabel, it's your course. The layout, the color scheme, even the hand-drawn charts you made, they've just been digitized. It's identical. I couldn't speak. My hand tightened around the phone. Madeline continued, I compared it with the version you sent me. The only difference is the name on it. That night, I visited Pathbright Academy's website. Opening it felt like stepping through a mirror. Everything was eerily familiar. The header used the exact phrase I'd scribbled into my black notebook back in 2019. Learning isn't about memorizing, it's about understanding yourself through knowledge. I scrolled down and saw the attached resources. Practice sets, question breakdowns, the 3-tiered learning roadmap. All content I had created over 3 years. I'd used these materials to help students go from 950 to over 1,400. I had once sent it to Avery, asking for feedback, back when I still believed that sisters could trust each other. Now it was all under her name, every effort, every sleepless night, every word. I don't know how long I sat there. When I came to, the screen was still glowing, showing the founder bio section. Avery Thompson, a visionary educator inspiring students to approach testing with confidence and strategy. Below it was an email Avery had sent to partners, forwarded to me by Madeline. We aim to maintain a clean brand image with no ties to a former co-developer who has displayed emotional instability and personal conflicts with me. She is no longer affiliated with Pathbright. I read that line over and over. Emotional instability. No longer affiliated. I didn't feel angry anymore. I just felt hollow. Like someone had dismantled every part of who I was, labeled it useless, and filed it away. That night, I reopened my old drive folder and found the original draft of the Clarity Path, the name I had given the course. Each PowerPoint slide, each hand-drawn concept sketch was still there, marked with timestamps. Some had sticky notes like, add the Martian example to science reading section. I laughed because I remembered writing that at the coffee shop under D Hall. I downloaded everything, backed it up on a new hard drive, and printed 3 full copies. One I slid under my pillow. One I mailed to Madeline, asking her to keep it safe. The last one I taped page by page along my motel wall, tracing the edge of the mirror, not because I needed to act right away, but because I needed to remind myself that what I made was real. No one could take it from me with a single dishonest tagline. The next day, I sent an email to the Pathbright contact address. To Avery, I saw your website. The materials from structure to content were developed by me before you ever started this project. I'm not asking for money, and I'm not threatening legal action. I just want you to know. I see what you did. And this time, I won't stay silent. Isabel W. I didn't expect her to reply. I just wanted her to know. I knew. On Sunday morning, I sat alone in my room, sunlight slipping faintly through the mold-stained curtains, illuminating the pile of documents and freshly printed materials I'd brought back from the library. In that light, every handwritten note and messy annotation glowed like proof. I had built these lessons from scratch, while others spent that time building polished online personas. I flipped open my old black notebook, the only relic from my college days, and a sealed envelope slipped out from the last page. I remembered it. A letter from my grandmother, handwritten, something I'd saved for 3 years without opening, assuming it was just a New Year's greeting. She'd passed away while I was still in Seattle, and I hadn't made it home in time. My hand trembled slightly as I picked it up. Inside was not just a letter. It included a copy of a brief will, written in faded blue ink, stamped and notarized. I, Barbara Wellingham, bequeath all teaching materials, curriculum designs, educational program structures, and related intellectual property I have created or helped develop to my granddaughter, Isabel Wellingham, as a sign of trust and continuation. Below that were her signature and 2 witness signatures. I sat frozen. She didn't just love me, she protected me, in ways my own parents never had. That afternoon, I went online to search for an intellectual property attorney in Chicago. After nearly an hour of browsing reviews, I called a small firm based in Hyde Park. A woman named Eleanor Reese answered. Mid-50s, clear-spoken, no fluff. I gave her a quick summary. My younger sister is using academic materials I created, and I have a will from the original co-developer, my grandmother, confirming ownership. Mrs. Reese went quiet for a few seconds, then replied, "Bring everything here this week." That Wednesday, I walked into her office carrying a backpack stuffed with printed curricula, a hard drive with all the digital files, and the original letter from my grandmother. Mrs. Reese reviewed each page, not rushing. When she reached the will, she paused, took off her glasses, and looked up at me. "Miss," she said, "this is bigger than just a lawsuit." I didn't understand. She pointed to the line, all teaching materials, curriculum designs. "This isn't just an ownership claim," she explained. "It's a public declaration of intellectual inheritance. What Miss Avery has done, using these materials without your consent, is not only copyright infringement, but a legal misappropriation of documented property." I straightened in my seat. "I don't want to sue. Not yet. I just want my name back." She nodded. "Then we'll file a copyright claim and register your ownership with the National Copyright Office. After that, I'll draft a formal notice to Avery Thompson and all relevant partners." I left her office with a file folder in hand, lighter than the 100 pounds of resentment that had been weighing down my chest for weeks. For the first time, I didn't feel alone. I had the law, I had evidence. Most of all, I had the truth. 3 days later, I received an email confirming my submission had been received and marked for priority processing. Attached was a PDF of my official copyright claim, complete with a tracking number. I printed it out and pinned it to my wall, right next to my grandmother's photo. She gazed at me from that slightly crooked frame with that same gentle smile, as if she had always known I'd need that letter one day. I opened my laptop, navigated to the hidden folder I'd buried years ago titled Clarity Originals, and renamed it Isabel_Wellingham_IP. That evening, I was adjusting the slides for tomorrow's online class when my phone buzzed. An anonymous message popped up. "Avery Thompson is being accused of plagiarizing SAT materials. Is there something going on between you two?" I didn't have time to reply before more notifications started pouring in. Reddit, Twitter, even Facebook. Within less than an hour, Pathbright Academy appeared in a post titled, "From Model Educator to Alleged Intellectual Theft?" An anonymous account had uploaded a series of side-by-side comparisons between my original materials and Avery's version. Every note, every chart, even the layout matched, almost identically. The comments started asking questions. Why isn't the original creator credited? Does anyone know who Isabel Wellingham is? I quietly took screenshots, saving every post. The storm was coming, but this time, I wasn't in the eye of it. I was the observer. And I was ready. 2 days later, it started to rain. I was sipping tea in my room when I heard a knock at the door. 3 knocks. Steady. Unhurried. Through the peephole, I saw a familiar but distorted scene. My mother, Judith, my father, Raymond, and Avery huddled under the cracked awning, sleeves soaked through. I opened the door a crack. My mother spoke first, her voice tight. "Isabel, we need to talk." I didn't move. "About what?" Raymond placed a hand on her shoulder, signaling her to stop. He looked at me, for the first time in years, without looking away. We know things have gone too far, but what's happening out there? It's destroying Avery. She's falling apart. I glanced at my sister. Avery no longer looked like the polished image from social media. Dark circles under her eyes, smudged mascara, hair clinging wet to her face. She clutched a leather bag, the one I recognized as mine from last year. She hissed through gritted teeth, not even looking at me. "What do you want, an apology, or do you just want to see me ruined?" I tilted my head and gave a faint smile. "I don't want anything, Avery. I just didn't want to be erased. But it looks like you've done that to yourself." Judith stepped in, her voice pleading. "We're family, sweetheart, blood. If you come forward for Avery, say you worked together, or at least that she had your permission, it would save her reputation. Ours too." I opened the door a few more inches. My eyes rested on my mother. "Family?" I echoed. "Family reads your birthday letter. They don't bury it in a drawer. Family says your name in their posts. They don't crop you out of the picture. Family doesn't call you emotionally unstable when you stand up for what you created." Judith dropped her head. Raymond turned away. Avery said nothing. I stepped past the doorway. Under the flickering hallway light, I looked at the three people who once were the center of my universe, now standing like strangers, asking for mercy. The last time I asked someone in this family why I was left out, they said, "Because you're too sensitive," I said, voice steady. But I wasn't sensitive, I just saw it clearer than all of you. I stepped back inside, not slamming the door, just gently closing it and turning the lock. Click. Their footsteps eventually faded into the sound of the rain. I didn't wait at the door, not because I was cold, but because for the first time in years, I had chosen to keep my own warmth. That night, I received an email from Eleanor, my attorney. "We've received confirmation from the Copyright Office. Your registration has been approved and will go public next week. I recommend preparing materials in case of any counterclaims. We are ready." I printed that email and pinned it beside the will in the original slide deck. The wall in front of me looked different now. It wasn't where I posted temporary dreams anymore. It had become a mirror, reflecting the woman they once underestimated. 3 days after I refused to open the door, a bright red, all-caps subject line appeared in my inbox. "Notice of Puggin infringement. Request for content removal." I opened it. The sender was a law firm based in Austin, representing Pathbright Academy. The message got straight to the point. I was being accused of unlawfully using academic content under the intellectual property ownership of Avery Thompson, including curriculum materials, charts, course structure, and visual design elements. They demanded that I remove all content from my personal website, shut down all related accounts, and sign a declaration promising never to reuse any part of it in the future. At the bottom, a note read, "If we do not receive a response within 72 hours, we will proceed with legal action." I wasn't surprised, just amused. After everything they'd done, they were now trying to silence me using the very weapon I once didn't have, legal protection. I forwarded the email to my attorney Eleanor immediately, attaching screenshots. 20 minutes later, she called. Her voice, calm but icy. "Isabel, this isn't a mistake. It's a calculated move. But we hold the advantage." "Evidence?" I asked. "Not just evidence. We have legally recognized rights, registered copyright, and all the original materials with time-stamped metadata. And if you're ready, I think it's time to let the world know the truth." That night, I sat at the old wooden desk by my window, laptop in front of me. No makeup, no prepared script. I turned on the webcam, took a deep breath, and hit record. I started with the story of my grandmother, a lifelong teacher, the one who left me the framework that I later expanded. I talked about those years of freelancing, unpaid tutoring sessions because students couldn't afford lessons, and how I built each module, each slide, each example from scratch. Then I pulled up the original files, page by page, with creation dates, handwritten notes, imperfect lines, and even the small typos I'd forgotten to fix. I compared them directly to the versions on Avery's site, almost carbon copies. I read aloud the excerpt from my grandmother's will, all teaching materials legally inherited by Isabel Wellingham. And finally, I said, I didn't make this video to destroy anyone. I made it to reclaim my name, the one I've been robbed of in silence for years. I don't want to win. I just don't want to disappear. I uploaded the video, no edits, no cuts, just me and the truth. Within 12 hours, the video had over 50,000 views. Comments flooded in. I took Isabel's class. She was the first person who ever made the SAT reading section make sense. How can Avery plagiarize and still sleep at night? I'm a teacher, and I can confirm, you don't create content like that in a week, unless you were the original author. Some of my former students reshared the video, along with screenshots of my lessons from as far back as 2020. A parent even published a lengthy blog post sharing how their daughter passed the SAT thanks to my materials and had never heard of Pathbright Academy. Reddit lit up. A new thread appeared titled, "The Sister Who Was Erased Then Sued for Reclaiming Her Own Work." 2 days later, Eleanor called me again, her tone a mix of satisfaction and caution. They're panicking, but they haven't backed down. Just now they filed for a temporary injunction to block your website. I smirked. And they think I'll bow down? No, she replied, and they're finally starting to realize that. That evening, I posted a short message on my personal page. No whining, no sarcasm. I don't expect anyone to fight for me, but I won't let anyone silence me. If knowledge is light, then I'm just making sure it stays in the hands of its rightful creator. At this point, I was no longer afraid. I didn't just have a story. I had a community holding the light for me, and this time, no one could snuff it out. One early summer afternoon, I received a certified mail delivery with a signature request. The courier said quickly, "From Austin, sender is the law office of Morgan and Tate." I signed, closed the door, and opened the envelope. Inside was a proposed out-of-court settlement agreement, a check for $125,000, and a non-disclosure agreement, packed with legal jargon, line after line. I read every word. It was basically a trade. I take the money, and in return, they get my complete and permanent silence. I wasn't allowed to mention Avery, Pathbright, my family, or any details of the plagiarism case. If I broke the NDA, I'd have to repay the money and face additional damages. At the bottom, a line in italics read, "We believe everyone deserves a fresh start. Let this end here." I folded the documents and sat still for a long time. Not because I was tempted, but because I felt sorry. Sorry that they still believed money could buy forgiveness. There was no apology, no admission of wrongdoing, just a signature and a price tag on silence. I stood up, grabbed a pair of scissors, and slowly cut the check into pieces. Then I took a photo of the NDA and sent it to my attorney Eleanor with just one line. They picked the wrong person. The next morning, I posted a black and white photo of my grandmother as a young teacher, standing in front of a chalkboard, holding a piece of chalk. Caption: "You don't have to stay silent just because the one who hurt you shares your blood. I didn't take the hush money. I choose to keep teaching, not for them, but for the kids who still deserve to be believed in." The post spread faster than I expected. Within 24 hours, thousands of shares and comments poured in. People messaged me privately, some to thank me for speaking out, others to share pictures of their kids using the materials I created. One woman wrote, "You probably don't know this, but because of your curriculum, my son, who was once told he wasn't college material, just received a full scholarship from Michigan State." I read every message and quietly saved them. Not to brag, but to remember, real value isn't in fame, but in the impact you leave behind. 2 weeks later, I launched a scholarship fund in honor of Barbara Wellingham to support underprivileged students preparing for college entrance exams. No need for perfect scores or shiny resumes, just a handwritten letter. I want to learn because I used most of my savings from the past year, plus contributions from a few former parents, to start it. It wasn't huge, but it was enough to change someone's journey. On the first day the fund went live, I got a letter from a former student, Connor, who once studied with me back when I was still teaching out of a public library. He wrote, "You were the first person who told me I didn't need to be perfect, just persistent. I got into college, and one day I want to help others the way you helped me." I printed his letter, framed it, and hung it above my desk in the small apartment I now rent, where the window faces a park and every morning sparrows sing outside. My family no longer contacts me. No birthday messages, no check-ins. I heard Avery disappeared from social media. Pathbright shut down their website temporarily. My mother sold the old house. Everyone has a different story. Why? I don't care anymore. I don't need an apology. I just need peace to rebuild my life. And this time, every brick is placed by my own hands. One night, while reorganizing my bookshelf, I found a slip of paper I'd once taped to a motel mirror last month. "I'm still here." I took it down and added one more line below, "and I'm not going anywhere." I pinned it to the bulletin board outside my newly launched online classroom, where nearly 30 students from different states and backgrounds now meet, all with one thing in common. They still believe that learning matters and kindness still leads the way. My story didn't end with revenge. It ended with freedom. And in the silence they left behind, I found something they never expected, my voice, and a world ready to listen. Isabel's story isn't just about seeking justice. It's a powerful testament to growing stronger in silence. In a world where truth is often twisted and the loudest voices dominate, Isabel chose to speak up with evidence, conviction, and kindness. She didn't need revenge to win, nor an apology to feel seen. Living true to her values and using that strength to lift others is the most enduring form of victory. What do you think of Isabel's choice? Would you do the same if your family betrayed you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel so you won't miss more powerful real-life stories and meaningful lessons about family.